All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So in this one, I am joined by, of course, my good buddy Kevin, Buffalo Jet fan. What's going on, man? Thanks so much for hopping in.
Yeah, man. Anytime. It's been a minute. We're what, a week away from cut down day, so quick off season. More low key off season than normal for us Jet fans for sure.
Yeah, dude, literally a week away. As far as like the date of this recording goes, not exactly sure when it's going to be uploaded, but man, I feel like it's so funny because the Jets right now they're projected to win 5.5, or
Right.
the 5.5 win total is like the over under out of Vegas, and I just can't remember this many eyes like externally. Like it just feels like this team, for whatever reason, has just so much pressure on them from the media. Um, and it's just interesting, right? Because it's not like we're in the same position as Philly or Kansas City, Detroit, Buffalo, Baltimore, where we're like, favored to win the Super Bowl, projected to go on this like playoff run. No, it's 5.5, but yet it feels like every line of dialogue in press conferences is being analyzed, every single rep in practice, preseason reps. There's a lot of different takes all over the place. Where do you kind of stand right now with what we've seen so far from this Jets team, good or bad?
Well, I think that my first takeaway is like I don't know if Aaron Glenn's going to be the guy, but if he's not, it's not going to be for the same reasons as Robert Saleh. I think you can see some pretty stark differences right away. I think you're starting to see some indications of attention to detail, accountability. In other words, that viral clip of him laying into, I think it was McCrary Ball, where like Salah would have, gave him a noogie and sent them for orange slices in the back or whatever. But you're starting to see that. He's definitely like a little bit of a hard ass, but also a player's coach at the same time. He definitely has his guys back at the podium. And I like the physical practices. I like the idea that they're going to be prepared for the regular season, and the risk of injury is there because last year, you open up the season against San Francisco, and yeah, maybe they had better players, they had better coaches, but really last year it was so clear like one team was prepared to play tackle football and one team wasn't. Like the Jets were getting hit, and they're like, "Why are they hitting us? Like this isn't mean. I don't like this," and they just weren't ready to start the year. I think this year that is probably not going to be a problem. So we don't know anything about this team if they're going to be good, bad, but early signs they're going to be different than the dudes who were here before, and I think that's a positive.
I like that point. I think it's yeah, I haven't heard anyone say it or really phrase it like that, right? It's definitely going to be different. Which I think a lot of Jets fans were really hoping for from the beginning, right? Can we not
Mhm.
just roll up the same sort of stuff that we saw from Saleh, Jeff Ulbrich, Joe Douglas? And with that comes a lot of change, new schemes, new play callers, new game plans. Just everything is brand new and fresh. So on one hand, again, externally speaking, the Jets aren't really projected to be this dominant playoff team. But on the other hand, it's kind of cool, and at least in my opinion, refreshing to see like all these new faces and really the start of a brand new regime here. But with that, it's actually funny. Today we got a report from Diana Rossini of The Athletic, basically saying that the Jets are sniffing around the wide receiver market, potentially looking to bring in a veteran. Where do you kind of stand with the wide receiver room and that, of course, how that trickles into the passing attack with Justin Fields? We'll get into Fields in a second, but veteran free agents that could be on the move, traded, cut, maybe some guys that are still out there like Amari Cooper. Where's kind of your stance with the whole should we add another wide receiver question?
I mean, the short answer is yes. Like the Jets, their wide receiver 2 is definitely not a strength of the offense. It's a limiting factor. But I'm looking at this offense, man, and I believe that there is enough where if the combination of coach and quarterback are capable enough, they should be able to have a functional offense. Like number one, you have a top 15 receiver in the NFL. A lot of teams don't even have that. You have a legitimate number one receiver. You have Mason Taylor, who it's reasonable to ask him to go out there and go for 500 yards and a couple of touchdowns as a top 50 pick as a rookie. You got Arian Smith, where I like that he's involved already. They're not, previous picks. It's like, oh, he's shadow boxing in the corner. He's like doing haikus on a bike or whatever. He's not ready yet. No, go out there and play in the preseason, be involved in the offense. Yeah, you have a couple of drops. We're going to come right back to you. Boom, boom. You have a couple catches. You can go out there and have 300 yards and stretch the offense and play a role on this team. You have a running back who was second in the league in receiving or number one in receptions by a back 2 years ago. You have a back behind him. Half the fan base thinks is even better than that guy. You have, look, Josh Reynolds and Alan Lazard are not good, but they are guys who have started on playoff teams recently. Say what you want about some of these dudes. There's some dogs in that wide receiver room, man. Go watch Brandon Smith come around on a wham block and take out a linebacker on that first play action boot against the Giants. Go watch Tyler Johnson come crack down on a linebacker and spring Braylon Allen for a 7-yard gain. And that's going to be part of the protocol, dude. Like we kind of have to understand that. You're bringing in a wide receiver 2 in this offense. This offense is not capable of supporting like 2,000-yard receivers. So the wide receiver 2, whoever it is, right now it's like Josh Reynolds and Tyler Johnson because they understand like the team's going to run the ball 40 times a game. And when they're not, Garrett Wilson's going to get a ton of targets. So there might be a whole half that goes by and the wide receiver 2 gets 1 target. And if they're going to go full Elijah Moore over that, like you can't bring in a guy with that expectation. So we're talking what, a 500-600 yard at most player. So I think that's some context. I don't think this Jets offense is a wide receiver 2 away from being a functional offense. I mean, last year, Ian, we had 2 top 20 receivers. We couldn't score more points than Andy Dalton throwing to the ghost of Adam Thielen. So at some point,
right,
you got at some point the signal caller and the quarterback has to be able to elevate role players, given that they have good protection and a good running game and a top 15 receiver, which they do have. If you want to give me a name though, like to me, I know it's a big swing. Alec Pierce, I think, would be like the guy. If you're going to go get a guy who's significantly better than Josh Reynolds and who's clearly the number 2. Don't trade a pick to throw another guy in the mix who's fighting with Tyler Johnson. You know what I mean?
I feel you. Let me pose this question. Well, first off, with Alec Pierce, I think, it's safe to say he's probably better and more consistent than like the Christian Watsons, the Romeo Dobbs of the world. But how much compensation are you willing to give up? Because with Alec Pierce, still on the rookie deal. Yes, he's entering the last season of his deal, but he's coming off a season with, I think, 800 plus receiving yards. I don't see Indy, especially given their quarterback situation, and you kind of feel like Shane Steichen's a little bit on the hot seat. That it's not guaranteed that he's going to be here for the long haul. I don't really know if they're just down to give him away for a 5th rounder or a 4th rounder.
No. I mean, if you're Indy, I would start by asking for a 2. You start by asking for a 2 if you're Indy. Now, I know the Jets don't have a 3rd round pick next year, but I get the value of a 3rd round pick between multiple picks. That would be fine to me. If it's a 2nd, then maybe you just wait and draft your wide receiver 2 in the 2nd round next year. But what I like about Pierce is, dude, he had 824 yards on 61 targets. He had 22 yards a catch. So that's a guy who can be really productive without a ton of volume going their way, which is why I think he'd be a really good fit. And Fields had some success throwing those sideline prayer balls to Pickens on contested catch opportunities, and I think Pierce can do that. Definitely. And then it's like, okay, Garrett Wilson, okay, you want to bracket him? Well, then we can get 1-on-1 and we could just chuck it deep to Pierce, and that could be like our top 2 passing options with Arian Smith in the mix as well. So that'd be a guy to go get. I just don't see the Jets being in the business of getting a guy just to say they did it and throwing him in the mix there. Like if you're going to give up a draft asset, I think it should be for a player who's clearly going to be your number 2 receiver, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. And I'm right there with you, right? The Jets want to run the ball. And another thing that we have to factor in too is Fields running the ball. If Fields can give us 500-600 rushing yards as well. I mean, like at the end of the day, there's only so many snaps that take place in an offensive performance. There's only one ball to go around. Which is why I think like the Terry McLaurin conversation is just not realistic at this point, because you're just like the offense, it just feels so focused, or like the focal point is going to be run the ball. Breece Hall, all these different backs, Justin Fields on the ground. It really feels like, and you might know this being from the area, the 2015 Buffalo Bills, right? When Rex Ryan took over, where we're going to try to lead the league in rushing attempts. LaShawn McCoy, who was it? Carlos Williams, have like this unproven kind of hit or miss quarterback, Tyrod Taylor, who is mobile, which is like the main highlight of his game. We're going to try to play good defense, but we're going to have the one, that primary top end wide receiver, Garrett Wilson and Sammy Watkins, but then the rest of the guys are just like 500 to 400 receiving yards, like somewhere in that range. Not really too dynamic as far as pass catchers outside of Watkins. But yeah, I think you make a lot of really, really good points. Just playing devil's advocate, let me throw this in there. If you're a defensive coordinator and the Jets don't go out and bring in another wide receiver, do you just key in fully on the run game, right? You're constantly playing like the strong safety down in the box. You're constantly forcing Fields to beat you on the outside. If you add a guy like Pierce, if you add a guy like, I don't know, Quentin Johnston or Dobbs, right? Just for example, does that maybe loosen things up close to the line of scrimmage a little bit? Or is it more so, okay, he's just another guy?
Well, I think that's the whole entire point of like Pierce. A guy like Pierce makes the defensive coordinator think of twice about that, right? But I think someone like Gabe Davis or whatever Amari Cooper has left or Romeo Doubs, they're not really changing that. Like if the Jets trade for Romeo Doubs and I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm like, cool. I'm treating him the same as Josh Reynolds. Like you're going to have to throw to him. I'm going to key in on the run. I'm going to try to double team Garrett. So you'd have to like someone like maybe Quentin Johnson. I know he's had some drops, but he's had some production. So it would have to be a player of the caliber that can strike fear in the heart of defensive coordinators. And I think that there's only a few guys that could be available for the right price because Chris Olave is a hospital ball away from retirement. Terry McLaurin, like trading like premium assets for a 29-year-old receiver and then paying him $30+ million a year before you know if you have a quarterback is complete malpractice. And besides, this offense can't support 2,000-yard receivers, so that wouldn't be a good resource allocation. So if there's a guy in the middle, like an Alec Pierce or maybe like Quentin Johnson was a name I didn't think about, then yes, that could change that. But I would just have to ask you, what did the Denver Broncos do? What did the Denver Broncos do when they had Cortland Sutton and then their wide receiver 2 was Marvin Mims? Well, they had the top 10 scoring offense in the NFL because their quarterback and their play calling were able to elevate role players given protection. What did Jaden Daniels do when his number 2 receiver was Olamide Zaccheaus, who caught for 500 yards? Well, they elevated role players because their given the quarterback and the protection and the coaching was able to do it. What did the Buffalo Bills do when their second wide receiver caught 500 yards? Quarterback, offensive line, play caller. I'm not saying that the Jets have set Justin Fields up for some, oh my gosh, like the Bears have. Like the Bears look at their roster, Caleb Williams, it's on you now. I'm not saying the Jets have done that. I know if Garrett Wilson stubs his toe, we're screwed. I get all that. If they want to add a guy, that's cool. I just don't like some of the comments I see acting like this is the 2020 Jets roster, and unless they trade for Romeo Doubs, they're completely screwed and they won't be able to have a functional offense. I just don't like that built-in excuse already. You have a top 15 receiver. You got 2 top 12 picks at tackle. You got a guard combination who are probably both going to make $15 to $20 million next year. You got a center who was the first center off the board. You got a running back who was the first guy drafted in his class who's a year removed from being second in the league in scrimmage yards. You got another top 45 pick at tight end. You got a speedster in the 4th round. Use him right away, who's going to be 24 years old when the season starts. You got Allen Lazard and Josh Reynolds, who are good enough to start on playoff teams not that long ago. At some point, we have to have a coaching staff who can make the sum be greater than the total of the parts, or however the saying goes. You get what I'm saying? Like coach him up, because last year, again, we watched. You had Devontae Adams and Mike Williams, and there's still all these excuses. Like it was nobody's fault, even though he had all these players. So at some point, coach and quarterback elevate some role players. You're going to get Justin Fields, I would say, probably at least 750 yards on the ground. So plan A is handed off to running backs. Plan B is Garrett Wilson. Plan C is Justin Fields' legs. That next guy is going to be plan D. So how much do you want to invest in a plan D? I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, do you really think like this wide receiver 2 is like a make or break for this team, the way it's built?
I just don't want to find her. And by the way, dude, awesome points. Based off of that explanation, man, we're a playoff team. We should be competing with the best of them. But
I want to have an abundance mindset, man. Abundance mindset. No more scarcity mindset. Come on, there's not a bunch of scrubs on this team.
Yeah, no, I mean, we should have. I don't want to say we should have learned from last year, but I think last season was a prime example of names on paper. Stars don't just automatically win you games. You actually have to go out to execute and have players that are bought into the coaching staff, and the coaching staff that actually believes in the players. And for once, granted, we haven't seen Aaron Glenn coach a single regular season game yet, but the hope is that Aaron Glenn is uplifting these guys, not like Saleh and Ulbrich, where you kind of feel like they're anchoring them down. Or I shouldn't maybe say Saleh that much, because it's not like he was Hugh Jackson level of bad. Like he did win some games. We did see some good defenses from him, but as far as like Nathaniel Hackett, Downing, Keith Carter, like the offensive staff, definitely holding those guys back. But no, I agree with you, right? Because at the end of the day, if the identity of the team is going to be running the football, we can't necessarily dump a ton of resources, whether that's trading away draft picks, premium draft capital, whether that's giving out big time money to, like, we can't be in a position like Cincinnati with Higgins and Chase. Not
Yeah.
necessarily saying there's a wide receiver two like that out there just sitting
I would
there
take
for
one of
the
them
team.
if they want to, if they want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
trade one of those
sure.
guys.
Yeah, dude, at that point you might want to just rethink the philosophy. But no, I agree with you. And also too, if you are Darren Muji, I know for fans, like, it's frustrating because we're seeing this team lose and lose and lose, but he's like fresh on the scene. He doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily, I I don't want to speak for him, but it doesn't feel like he's forced into making this decision. Like, oh, pressure's on. I got to trade my second round pick to go get Pierce, or got to go make the scary Terry deal happen because, like, we're just in that bad of a situation. Like, he's only in year one, and GMs start really getting, like, looked at heavily. I want to say, like, after 3 years, like, they have a pretty long leash, I would say, compared to coaches.
Mhm.
So great point, dude. I love that. I First of all, I love all the details about Pierce that you brought up. Also, too, his size would be a really nice counterpart to Garrett Wilson. They're
Mhm.
two different types of wide receivers. So yeah, interesting stuff. I just don't necessarily think we can just get him for the cheap. So you have to almost be willing to part ways with a third round pick or a second round pick or something. My guess would it would just be my guess.
Yeah, and you'd
And
have
then of
to
course,
extend him too, because in the last year of his deal, you're not going to rent him, so he'd come at a costly price. I don't think it's not like Terry McLaurin territory, but it would be a significant investment for sure. But then I think the benefit of that is, like, okay, if you're gonna draft your wide receiver two in the second round next year, you could just say, okay, well, now we've kind of solved that, and now that's, like, crossed off our checklist. So that would be the mentality. I wouldn't want them to do it for a rental.
yeah, no, I hear you. So yeah, transitioning from the wide receiver kind of aspect of it, the other main kind of point here in the passing game is Justin Fields. And in
Mhm.
that first game, you saw a lot of just, quick balls out right down to the check down. Super efficient stuff. We haven't really seen a ton of Justin Fields. This is being recorded before the final preseason game. I doubt he's going to play in that game.
Mhm.
We'll see. But the second game, not so great. 1 for 5. I mean, it is what it is. I don't know where you stand on it personally. I don't really think it's a big deal whatsoever. I don't think Inkstrand is, game planning for these defenses. You even look at some of the incompletions that Fields had in that Giants game, and you can easily just point the blame at other players. Mebu getting beat, Joe Tippmann high snap on like a design quick throw. I don't know. Was it perfect? Obviously not. I'm not making excuses for Fields, but I do think it's relevant to bring up the context of the performance, the horrible performance that Fields had. But where do you stand with Justin?
Yeah, I mean, in that game, you're really talking about one missed throw, because you could say people say it's excuses. Like, I don't think Justin Fields is gonna be the savior of the Jets, but we can factually say what happened. Like, there was a snap that went over his head. There was a play that 95 times out of 100 is gonna be DPI. Like, that happened. Like, we can
Oh, good
objectively say
call.
that.
Good call. Good call.
Like, so to me, Fields the preseason, I don't care, because, to be fair, even if he played against the Eagles and he went 5 for 5 right on the field and scored a touchdown, I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, we're all good. The preseason is like Quentin Skinner time and guys like that. In terms of Glenn and Fields and stuff like that, those guys are a regular season evaluation. But I will say one thing I liked from Fields in the preseason was ball out. Even that play against Garrett Wilson, he saw stacked box. He had a one-on-one. He threw a slant to his number one receiver. It was pretty good coverage. It was about a yard behind him, incomplete, not a turnover-worthy play. Okay, I can live with that. That's the number one thing I'm looking at with Justin Fields, because I know people, like, I get it. He's either Tim Tebow and he doesn't belong in the league, or he's Lamar Jackson, but his coach was mean to him. And, like, but he's probably in the middle. And I will say, if you look over his last 17 games, through the lens of him being a really elite rushing quarterback, there's stuff from a passing profile that's not horrible. Like, his last 17 starts, like, around 63% completion percentage, hovering around 7 yards per attempt, over 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. Like, it's not like he's Tim Boyle. Like, those are some passing numbers you could kind of live with if you have an elite rushing offense. But the biggest thing with Fields is the sacks. And I know he hasn't had good offensive line play, but even in Chicago, when other backup quarterbacks went in there, the sack rate for the team dropped in half. So it's that ball has to be out. And I think they've drilled that into him, and he's been willing to do it. because this offense, they're kind of playing for 3rd and 2. You can kind of see it. They're like, dude, we're going to get to 3rd and 2. And guess what? We're going to hand it off to Braylon Allen behind AVT and Membu. And then we're going to get to 4th and half a yard. And then we're going to do the tush push. And then we're going to run it back from the top. Like that's kind of what they're trying to do. And I think that may not be pretty. It can be effective, but you can't take sacks. You can't take a sack on 1st down. Now you're in 2nd and 16 and that whole plan is kind of screwed. So that was the biggest positive to me, was that the ball was out and the Jets allowed the 3rd lowest pressure rate in the NFL in the first 2 games of the preseason. So that's the biggest thing from this offense. They can't take sacks, because if they're getting that, his sack rate for his career Fields is like 12%. If they can get that to under 8% and all of his other passing stuff stays the same, and you have a top 5 rushing offense, the offense has a chance. It's got a chance. That sack rate is the biggest thing to me.
Really good point. You took the words out of my mouth. It definitely feels like the Jets' whole plan of attack this offseason, this upcoming regular season, is going to be utilizing 1st and 2nd down to get to 3rd and short. Mm-hmm. And with the tush push, I don't want to make too big of a deal of it, but I mean, look at Philly. Like they're essentially playing, it's like 1st and 9 for them. Yep. Every drive. And one drive, okay, whatever, it's just 1 yard, but over the course of the season, if you're lining up and you only have to go 9 yards compared to the other team's 10 every single drive of every single game, like that's a lot of yards that adds up over time. And also too, like if you're in these 3rd and shorts, what are the chances of the quarterback getting sacked? The possibilities, right. The options that you can call: short pass, long pass, play action, rolling Fields out. That's really what I want to see from Fields. We haven't seen any of that in the preseason, which I don't blame Tanner for not calling. Not saying I want to see that, but save it for the regular season, like quick outs where where Fields snaps the ball, he gets it and he just starts beelining it to the left, beelining it to the right, rolling outside, bootlegs. If he is such a quote unquote like hard time processing, right, and he can't decipher a defense, can't read the defense and everything, get him away from the clutter if that's the case, and just give him a free half the field read with no one in front of him. Really utilize this guy's legs. So really good point, dude. I think and also off of that, like he had a quote where I think it was either yesterday or today or something. Basically he was alluding to the fact of he's down to take the 8-yard check down repeatedly. And there were a lot of negative comments like, oh, whatever, like this isn't a franchise quarterback. Mahomes wouldn't do this and that. But I don't know. Like when I look at Justin Fields, like where his biggest areas have been, it's not getting the football out. And for him to kind of, like you said, dude, it seems like the coaches have really been trying to drill that into his head. And so far it's preseason, whatever, but the ball is coming out pretty quickly, I would say. He's not standing back there, looking confused as hell. And again, vanilla defenses preseason and stuff, but only time will tell once the regular season hits. But great points, man.
Yeah, man. And I think that, and look, if we're allowed to freak out about certain things not looking good in the preseason, then I think we're allowed to draw some positive conclusions. Like I truly think, I know people will say like, well, if the teams are going to stack the box, if you can only run, they got to take shot plays. And Coach Engstrand followed up on that comment this morning. It just was posted by Zach Rosenblatt a couple minutes ago, but he said on that 8-yard at a time comment, but Engstrand said, quote, he's going to play the way the defense allows him to play. So if they're going to allow him to take a shot downfield, he's going to take it. If they don't allow it, he's going to check the ball down and move on to the next play. So I think that to me is saying like, dude, if the defense is giving you 6 yards, hit it and then move on to the next play, because they're drilling, they're trying to get the ball out quickly. So I think people took that quote and ran with it. Like, yes, you can't have just a short passing offense and a running game. You have to take shots. That's why they draft Darian Smith. We all understand that, but I think the Jets offense is going to be able to run the ball, even though teams know it's coming. Like the Packers and Giants knew that was coming the last 2 preseason games when their starters were out there and our starters were out there, and it was boom, Braylon 6 yards, boom, Brees 5 yards, boom, Fields QB keeper. Fields only had one snap in the preseason where he took longer than 3 seconds to either decide to throw it or scramble. I think that's a really good number. You want to make that decision quick. Even the one, there was a play where he took off against the Giants where he had Brees, where maybe Brees could have got 10 yards, but he made a quick decision, got up the middle, 7 yards, slide down. That's fine. That's beautiful. That's a quick decision. And furthermore, the Chicago Bears in 2022 and 2023, they were first in yards per carry as a rushing offense in 2022. They were sixth in yards per carry in 2026. They were top 5 in volume both times. So everyone knew the run was coming, and they were top 5 in volume and top 5 in efficiency those years. So that's not, to me, that's not the problem. They're going to be able to run the ball. You got to be able to keep yourself in a good down and distance by avoiding sacks, and you got to be creative with like either trick plays or deep passes, whether it be Arian Smith or Garrett Wilson, to steal chunks of yards, because I don't think they're going to be able to. You can't have every touchdown drive be a 14 play drive, right? Because a penalty, a sack, something happens. You got to be able to steal chunks of yards. And I think Coach Engstrand is pointing that out perfectly. These guys aren't idiots. Like they know what they're working with. They kind of know how it's going to have to look. And I'll remind us, like, dude, the team won 5 games last year, man, and they were 24th in points per game. They scored the second fewest amount of points of any team who had their quarterback won for at least 12 games. This offense was horrific. And if you only take the games where they had no Greg Z, no Tyron Smith, and Devontae, put it in there, we still didn't beat Andy Dalton throwing to a chalk outline of Adam Thielen. So, like, at some point, if you can get younger and cheaper and get better right away, that's the first step. That's where the bar was left by the previous people, even though we had Hall of Famers all over the place. So let's beat that bar. Let's have a top 23 scoring offense for the first time in 10 years. Let's win 8 games, man. We do 8 games. I'm stoked. If you break the Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas ceiling in your first year and inheriting a bunch of dead money with a brand new system, brand new scheme, like, we can say, oh, that's like a loser's mindset. But to me, it's like, you got to look at it. The reality is they're starting over, and the last people got a pretty long leash, dude. So to me, man, 7-8 wins and you have a functional offense, I'll take it.
Yeah, and you mentioned getting younger. You mentioned clearing money, so you're getting younger, cheaper, and better. But you're
Right.
also restarting this culture, which has just been such a major problem for this Jets team. The finger pointing, not my fault, it's this guy's fault. That whole thing. Man, I'm just so. And granted, we haven't really seen much adversity with this Jets team, so who knows how they'll respond. But I feel like we'll be in better hands in that regard. Like, if leaks are coming out of the building, like, we haven't heard anything like that coming, with this new regime so far. One quick last point, and then we'll get out of here. I know I said 15 minutes, so I appreciate you.
You're good, man.
showing
I could talk Jets all day. You know that.
Yeah. And by the way, for everyone listening, you guys already know it, but Buffalo Jet fan link will be listed down below in the description box. Go check them out. You guys, again, probably already have, but make sure you're subscribed. One quick point on Fields checking the ball down. If the ball's being completed, so first off, the Jets are going to be running the ball. Fields' legs are going to be involved in one way or another, whether that's design stuff, whether that's him just improvising, probably both. In other words, the goal here, first, second down, get to third and shorts, and then it opens everything up. If you're doing that consistently, chances are you're eating a lot of the clock. If you're going on these 9 to 15 play drives, like, you're just churning the clock. And if you're completing these checkdowns, the 8-yard completions that Fields was talking about here, but it doesn't matter if you're just completing the football. In other words, you're being efficient. That is just going to continue to eat at the clock, as opposed to last season, where we're not really running the football. What were we, top 3 in passing attempts last season, and there were just so many incompletions. So, like, the ball or the clock has just stopped constantly. It felt like so many times last season. I was watching Jets games, and the game it felt like it was over at halftime, but the second half would just take forever because there's just so many incompletions, and we're just constantly punting the ball back. If the Jets can, and look, it's not going to happen every single drive. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be poor clock management at times. There's going to be a fumble, whatever, injuries, like every bad things will happen this season. It's just inevitable. Bad things happen to every team. But
Yeah.
if we can consistently run the ball, eat the clock, complete checkdowns, and be efficient, play efficient offensive football, man, we could very well see a lot of low scoring games, not really putting a lot of stress on the defense, because these games will be shortened, in my opinion.
Yeah, the time of possession, absolutely, because it's so disheartening if you just do like the 3 and outs and back on the field is a lot for your defense. The Jets were dead last in rushing attempts last year, and I know it's like, well, they they couldn't run the ball effectively. They couldn't do much effectively last year. Like last year, they like you really do 5 things on a football team. You pass the ball, you run the ball, you stop the run, you stop the pass, you play special teams. Jets were bad in all 5 last year. Can we get good at 3 of those 5 things? Right. This year is what I'm kind of looking at. And last year, running the ball was not a part of their identity. And this year, you can already tell like they're not pretending to be anything they're not. They're like, here it comes. Like here, you know what's coming. You signed Justin Fields, you draft Armand Membu. You got a nice stable of backs. So you're definitely right. It's funny how this Jets offense this year there's definitely massively frustrating things about it, but almost in the exact opposite of last year's frustrating things, right? It's like a different flavor because this year, if we're in 3rd and 8, it's like, oh man, what are we going to do here? But last year, that's how it was in like 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. Last year we were in 3rd and 2 and Rodgers was in shotgun.
Right.
I'm like, what miracle do we have to perform to convert this 3rd and 2? But this year, you already know it's going to be a run under center. What a novel concept that is. By the way, Breece Hall, when he takes a carry from under center, he averages 2/3 of a yard more than when he takes a carry out of shotgun in his career. So I'm sure he'll be happy to make that change. And then they're just gonna like if in the modern NFL, it's so hard if you don't have a quarterback who can get a 3rd and 2 with his legs. Like you're playing at such a disadvantage. And guys, I get it. Like Aaron Rodgers, there's obviously still at 42 years old, there's things he could do a lot better than Justin Fields. I'm not saying we made this massive upgrade, but I think there's going to be things that we could not do last year that were very frustrating, that limited us, that we will be able to do with a mobile quarterback and with a coaching staff who can maybe play to their team's strengths for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, dude, thanks so much again. I know we went over the time limit here, so I appreciate it, bro. And anything else that you wanted to cover?
Yeah, man. How many games we winning, man? What's the record prediction?
I got us winning 6 games.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, you're just over the Vegas over, so you can make some money if you're right. Yeah, I'm landing at 7 and 10. I think that would be about fair. Be competitive, be punchy, win 7 games, and just have us like if I can end the year feeling good about the coaching staff, I think that would be a win to me. That's like the biggest thing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, of course, obviously the focus is on winning and losing and everything, right? What's the overall record going to be? But can we look like how almost the Lions looked when Dan Campbell first took over? Because they were losing a bunch of games, but they were taking like the best teams in the NFL to forcing teams like the Bills and whatnot, Green Bay at the time, like forcing them to go on 2-minute drives to beat them. And it's just like this Lions team is like freaking winless. How are we struggling this much? And it was really just like a talent issue for Detroit. So it was like, okay, we have the culture, we have the foundation, we have the systems. We just now need the infusion of talent, the Amon-Ra St. Browns, the Penei Sewells, the Jameson Williams, the Aiden Hutchinsons of the world. Once we start adding, serious talent, this team's just going to explode. So if we could really just set the foundation, I think that to me is the number one goal. Create the culture, set the foundation. Once we do those 2 things, wins will come over time.
Yep. I couldn't agree more, man. I'm with you.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much for everyone hanging out, watching. Really, really appreciate it. And as always, go Jets.
Go Jets.